Hey, this is Kathy Moss. Say, I'd just like to share a happy Mother's Day to everybody and share a couple of poems with you about women that have influenced me, been a part of my life, and give tribute to those that mean a lot. And of course, I'd like to start that off with Wink, Nod, and Sigh, which was actually written for Georgie Sicking when I had read her autobiography. But come to find out, after I reread it, I realized it was for my mom, for my grandmother, for my sisters and aunts and friends. And so I kind of give it a tribute to everybody that I know that has lived the Western lifestyle and went through struggles. She's felt a rope with a Mustang attached, threw berries into a biscuit batch, the holes she'd patch in clothes and shoes. She's loved her life and has paid her dues. She's tallied and rallied, she's opened the gate. She's chased and paced and could hardly wait for true love to come calling and fulfill her life. Yet the blue of her falling and the dreams of a wife would have to wait until there was more time in the day. For her fate would not dawn on her, or come her way until she gathered her emotions and set them aside, till she lathered all horses that she started to ride, and found out that tough is not all that there is. And what she's done comes back upon her, the takes and the give. She's gathered and sorted, she's worked dawn till dark, she's lathered, been courted, jerked, drawn, and embarked into places with horses she never thought existed, keeping paces through courses that she has enlisted. She's draped and dallied, she's taped and cursed, she's coped and prodded, she's roped and worse, she's caught things she didn't want to and tried to turn loose. She's been drug, whipped, and burned, yet learned to cut goose. She's folded and molded and tarried too long. She's charmed and harmed and has done things wrong, and brought laughter where tears stain the face. Taught love, soothed fears. She's attempted grace. She's held many a child, colt, and calf, with the hands the size of man's, only half. And the calluses that line them may dull the feel, yet her heart it binds them to a mother so real. She's cursed God, loves the Bible, and she believes in Amen. And if she had her druthers, she'd do it over again. And the sorcery remorse behind her eyes, with all her give up and failures that she tries to disguise, it only haunts the face that in the mirror lies. It taunts a trace in the lines of grace, and gives her knowledge she can now recognize. Then that moment is gone. She fixes her hair with the hum of a song that gently tickles the air. The wind in her wake is the aftermath, for she's learned to walk another path to keep her life whole that is embedded deep within her soul. And with a wink, nod, and sigh, she boldly walks by. Carries good memories for me. Another poem that I have been noted for, especially this last year in 2019, was Lady Buckaroo. And when I wrote that, I had a tribute to the Western women that you never see from the road, down in the desert country and all over the U.S. and beyond. There are women that their stories will never be told. And so it goes something like this. Woke up cold again this morning, on bedroll canvas frost. Fall to winter comes a courtin' searching for those that are lost. Sagebrush fire for her coffee, and water too cold to heat. Her breath blows frost in the sunrise. She still can't feel her feet. Her hands burned by rope and sun, now froze by wind and ice. Scarred by battles lost and won, do or die, and don't think twice, for she is a child of sage and sand, a stewardess of the land. In the city is where she don't fit. She'd rather ride the range and notice nature's change, and feel her ponies on the bit. or in a horsehair macawty with a rawhide boselle, or maybe a two-ring to the spade. Within these two hands, most can tell of how her ponies are made. And the rhythm, the heartbeat, the price that she'll pay, riding day to day, making a living through her pony's feet. Well, the sun is coming on, the frost is almost gone. She can hear a calf bawling up the draw. What's lost now found, a musical sound, a promise kept made to its ma. And she'll saddle her old pony, who acts like he don't know thee and questions what she'll do. He might buck a little, but she steps upon him. They both have the grit to follow through. And wherever that she roams, well, she's made this life her own, and feels a little pride in what she'll do. A little rough to some, but through the work she's done, they call her a Lady Buckaroo. Yeah, she is a Lady Buckaroo. Another poem that actually has made a big impression on me, of course, is The Truth. And that, of course, was the title cut of the CD this last year that won the 2019 Album of the Year. In writing that poem years ago, I learned an influence of a woman that was pretty soft-spoken, didn't have a lot to say, and I had lived in a place where things were a little bit more aggressive, maybe a little bit more assertive. One of the stories that I like to tell about Billy Flick is we were pushing some heifers down into the summer pasture one year. It was probably about a 10-mile ride, and we had her dog with us, whose name was Woofy. And Billy and I were kind of riding drag, just visiting, and we don't get together very often, maybe once or twice a year. And we were kind of telling stories back behind, and I'd see Billy, and she'd go, and Woofy would look back at her, and she'd push her out. And so Woofy would trot on up the road or up the place a little bit up the herd, and she'd turn around and look back at Billy, and Billy would push her forward. And so Woofy took off and got about 3/4 of the way up the heifer herd, and she looked back, and Billy just let out a whistle and pushed her all the way out. So Woofy got clear up to the front and turned around and looked at Billy. And in that look, Billy pushed her off to the left and said, so Woofy actually turned the herd and turned the head of the cows to the left, and we were out in the middle of nowhere. There was not a fence line to be seen. I have no idea where we were going at that point. And we followed drag, and Woofy kept the cows going, and pretty quick here comes this gate up in the middle of the sagebrush, and we pushed the herd through the gate. And I told Billy, because I was not familiar with that kind of vocabulary with stock dogs, I told Billy, I said, why couldn't we have sat in the kitchen, drank coffee, and done all that sign language at the house? And she so casually looked at me and says, well, Kathy, somebody's got to shut the gate. So with that, I give you my first impression of Billy Flick, and there again, it goes out to so many women, but this is who inspired this poem called The Truth. She's felt a rope. As I watched from a distance, her hands had a lot to say. Though callous, they softly spoke of her life in a subtle, silent way, how they molded her life into a treasure, how they survived the heat and cold, how they helped her build her fires, and at her prayers they gently fold. 1,000 times they've saddled horses of the hundreds that she's had, and how they helped her laugh through all the crazy wrecks that she's had. And that calvy cow pushing hard, how tender yet firm they were. The strength in her grip assured no slip as she helped a new baby stir. And that rope in her hand, it's natural, for she swung it a time or two, not to catch every time it was thrown, but just to keep swinging till the job was through. and the strokes they give her filly to calm her troubled mind, that guide, teach, and calm her until confidence she'd find. And after dark, when we got home, her hands have more to do, making dinner and peeling apples to bake a pie or two. When all is quiet around the house and night has settled in, her hands are busy one more time with horsehair hitching again. An easy rhythm to settle the day, for they have done their part. They've created a life shaped and molded by two. They've created a piece of art. And as I watched from a distance, she's trusted them since her youth, though their language is never spoken. Her hands tell the truth. Yeah, that's a Billy Flick poem. And it has been a blessing to share that throughout the states and over into Australia, and it's over in England right now, and folks are I've get letters on that poem, and it's a pretty neat feeling to have it speak to so many women and so many lives, and so I'm honored to share that. You know, when I first started writing poetry, or not writing it, but before I actually really started performing it, Baxter Black had mentioned he came by and saw us and said that he heard I had done poetry. And he asked me if I would do one, so I pulled out a poem called Rodeo Ride. And I tell this story quite often, but it was basically a story about my nephew and him riding a sheep for the very first time. And when I finished, Baxter says, "Why are you not on stage?" And I said, "There ain't no way." At that time, I didn't think that my poetry had a whole lot to say to other people, because they were basically about my family or about personal things that happened, or, you know, I didn't think that they would speak to anybody else. And at that point, he said 2 words to me that changed my life. And he said, "Too bad." And he walked away. And I realized that I could let him speak to other people if they wanted him to. They don't have to, but... And so a year later, I opened for him. And that started my first journey in poetry and all that kind of stuff. And I realized that I didn't have to be a Baxter Black. The one that really influenced me to be okay with what I do on stage is Joel Nelson. And he was a personal friend and has helped me with a colt that I had an issue with several years ago, and was just a great beginning to kind of find myself in that. So back to Mother's Day. I want to say to everybody, you know, I wish you a happy Mother's Day. I wish you all safe, and the coronavirus, may it dissipate in the heat and turn us loose where we belong in the freedom of the United States. So want to be on the road. I got several things I want to do. The Academy of Western Artists, I want to do that this year. I'd never been down in Texas before. I want to meet up with Clint Bradley. I want to meet up with Dina Wood and Billy Bowles, and want to meet back up with Bryn and Andy, and see Joni, and appreciate Teresa Burleson and her poetry, and all of that stuff. There's just so much life I want to live, and I hope that here in the near future we'll be able to get out and do that. And if not, we'll shoot for 2021. You guys stay blessed. Happy Mother's Day to everybody, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.